Okay, we're going to go ahead and start, and I want to welcome Eleni Taluzik. She has been teaching with Tunelark now for about a year and a half. I'm Kate Johnston, the director of the instructor programs here, and we're enjoying an opportunity to get to know Eleni a little bit and have a chance for this video to be a piece of our instructor resource library. Her devotion to healthy singing is really inspiring, and so I want to ask her some questions. Um, and I want to start off with, how did you find your way on the path to becoming a musician?
Okay, so um, I always enjoyed music a ton, and I actually started with piano when I was 8, and I loved that. I still do. But I always liked singing, and when I was little, I would make up songs and record them on a tape recorder. um, and like not sing for anybody except for sometimes my sister would coerce me into singing for her. So I would sing for her. So that was very early on. I think I was like same age, around 8 years old. And then I really liked it, and my mom saw that, so she was looking for a place that I could take lessons, and I started taking lessons when I was 13, and I've taken them pretty much ever since. When it came to time to start college, I knew I wanted to major in music because I loved it, and it was a wonderful outlet for me, just cathartically and emotionally. And so, yeah, so I knew I had to choose between piano or voice when I was going for college, and I knew that I was better at singing, and also I liked it better too. So, yeah, that's what happened. So, yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, and that's a long and beautiful journey to the mastery level that you're at now. And as we know, with as musicians, that's an ongoing thing.
Yes.
But thinking back now that you've had the opportunity to do that path of your own as well as um, be a teacher, what's a good mindset for a beginning singer?
Oh gosh. A good mindset for a beginning singer. I would say singing is as much a psychological battle as it is a physical one. And I think that actually one of the best mindsets for a beginning singer is to early on learn not to listen to yourself. That's really hard. And I think since it takes a while, it's a good thing to start with. And also, one more, too, I would say, is to not feel like you have to hold back your breath at any point, because that's really important. A lot of people think they have to hold their breath, like they conserve it, and that's actually not how that works. So, yeah, those are the two concepts I think are most important at the start. So, yeah.
Great. Well, how did you become so passionate about vocal health?
That was kind of a longer journey, or rather a later journey, I should say. I learned about it during my doctorate more so. Um, when I was doing my certificate in vocology, I had to take classes about vocal pathologies, which are injuries and problems, and I also had to take classes about generally healthy singing and how to achieve that and how to teach that. And so through that time, I became really passionate about it because I understood that your voice is an irreplaceable instrument. And if you injure it, unfortunately, it's not that you won't ever be able to make sound again or sing again, but the chances of you being able to do what you could do before are very slim. Um, so that's why, I mean, it's just that to me, if I can teach somebody to sing for the rest of their life and healthily and be able to do what they want to do, then I can, you know, I would rather do that than teach somebody something that's going to, maybe 15 years down the line cause them to be unable to sing anymore. So, yeah.
Well, how does that concept of vocal health apply to power and volume?
Yes. So that is a tricky one because, again, that's a mental battle. Power and volume. Volume can be achieved by effectively two different methods. One is by muscular emphasis in your throat um, and kind of squeezing or, you know, putting pressure here. And one is through resonance. So the one power is kind of visceral, you could say. It's easy to go to. It's something that feels like power because it feels like this. Like it feels like strong, you know what I mean? It feels like muscular effort. Um, and so obviously in the rest of our body, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like we lift weights or, do things like that. We know that that's kind of associated with a good thing in a sense, right? Because we know we're like building muscle or we're exercising when we run, we like feel the burn, and things like that. But for the voice, none of that applies. That's just not how the voice works at all. It's not the kind of muscle you can work out and it'll get stronger. And so, yeah, so that's one way. But the other way with resonance, which is the way I teach, you can achieve effectively the same amount of loudness, right? The same amount of power or loudness. It just takes a little more time because it takes learning how to use the breath adequately to provide yourself with that kind of oomph that is needed for certain styles. So, but that one won't injure your voice, and that one you could do for a long time. So, yeah.
That's great. What is one of the favorite moments in your singing career so far?
I have a lot of them, but I was thinking about this. And most recently, I'd say it was 2 years ago now, I think. 2 summers ago, we did an opera here at the company South Bend Lyric Opera called Cavalleria Rusticana. And I played a kind of a villainess character, um, which was fun. And it it was just a really wonderful experience. Opera is something I love to do because it's such a community experience. It takes like a village to put on an opera, so that's always wonderful. And when you have a good group of people that are just kind and friendly, it's just a wonderful thing to do. I really enjoyed that, and it was the first thing I sang since COVID had started, so it was definitely wonderful because I hadn't sung for anyone for about a year, and I felt so drained, like just, I don't know, I felt awful. So it was really cool to be able to do that, and fun. And afterwards, people said, "I really didn't like you," and I was like, "That's right." So yeah, so it meant I did a good job. Yeah, and I liked it.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
So and of course most of your training is operatic in nature, but how
Hmm.
does that translate to other singing styles?
Yes. So opera training is intense. It applies, however, to other styles because there are certain things that are basically fundamental to singing in general, that apply across the board regardless of the style of music you're singing. So primarily, one of the biggest things is breath and how much we take in and how much we spend, um, which is a lot. So a lot more than your average day, of anything. And so that's one, and then resonance is the other. Both of those things apply to pretty much any type of singing you want to do. If of course there's always the option to not use resonance if you, I don't know, for whatever reason don't want to, but of course being resonant also means that you are well tuned typically as well. So it's very important for tuning as well as so is the breath. But those things are pretty much applicable across the board, I think, in any kind of style of singing. And honestly, those are the fundamentals of just generally any singing. It's strange because there's not that many principles to singing, actually. And it's just like getting to a point of mastering them. So it's just that the main difference between operatic singing and other styles is primarily actually how we shape our vowels and the shape of our mouth. That's like the main difference. Operatic singing is round. It creates a different timbre, a warmer timbre, and other styles are not. That's one of the biggest differences. So, yeah, and straight tone
Interesting.
versus vibrato. But yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
So what is one of the styles that you've encountered that a student is wanting that you found the most challenging?
Contemporary musical theater. Because in the female voice particularly, because where contemporary musical theater is written is very near the vocal break between chest voice and head voice. And many people tend to just bring up their chest voice, which is not particularly healthy and is vocally fatiguing. And so to convince somebody to switch, basically like change their pathway and not do that is tricky. And it's harder too, because they write it in such a place that that is the point at which the head voice is the weakest. It's not like the older golden age musical theater isn't as bad because there was clear lower stuff that's chest voice and then higher stuff that you could sing quite loudly because it's higher, right? Not even that high, but just enough that, that it's not so tricky. But nowadays there's a lot of stuff that's written right in the area of the break, and that's just hard for anybody to do. So I think it's just challenging to teach, maybe not because of teaching, but just like, to be there with the student while they struggle through that, because it's not,
Yeah.
it's not the
Yeah.
easiest thing to achieve. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. I never really thought about the difference between the former styles of musical theater and the
mm-hmm.
older, but you're right. Those
Yeah.
those scores really do have sort of a low part and a high part.
Yeah. And these ones are just
Interesting.
middle, 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 a little high, middle, middle, middle. So it's
Yeah.
just really, it's just a completely different style of approach. I mean, just where it's sitting. I think it's not very nice to singers, but
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Well, I also had asked you to sing something for us today,
Yes,
which would be
right.
great. I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to have you do that, and I think it'd be great for those that are listening and watching later
Mm-hmm.
to have a good description of where this song comes from and what it's about before we listen to you sing it.
Great. So I will be singing Sein wir wieder gut, which is like everything is well, basically. Um, it's from Aria auf Naxos by Strauss, Richard Strauss, not Johann Richard. um, and it's Strauss lived into the 1900s, actually. So he's kind of a late romantic slash contemporary composer. Some of his works, like this one, Ariadne of Naxos, is very beautiful, romantic style music. And then he wrote things like Electra, which is insane and kind of atonal. Um, and yeah, so he kind of went back and forth between those styles. And he resolved back to the tonal style, actually, before he passed away. Um, but anyway, so this opera is about, I will give a brief story about it because my song comes from this, and it's fun. So this is about in, Europe, where there were still, at the time when there were still people who were very wealthy, like the Medicis and stuff, who were putting on operas in their homes. That's the setting. So there's an opera composer who's been commissioned to write an opera to be performed in this person's home. And that's who I play. I play the composer. So he's very young and nervous, and his teacher is also there. And then it turns out that these actors from the theater come who do the different styles of French characterism, and they say they're going to perform. So then the composer is so frustrated because he's supposed to perform his opera, and then they're going to do this silly play, and he's very serious about his opera, and he wants it to be, respected and appreciated, but they say they're going to do the play after the opera, which he finds shocking because he thinks the opera should be second, of course, so that it leaves everyone with the best impression possible. And so that's kind of the general thing of the whole thing. He doesn't win, really. So the opera is performed second. He wins in that way, but he's upset. And somehow the actors end up in the opera. It's complicated. Anyway, but basically, it's very silly Strauss opera. With a really long duet at the end. And anyway, so this scene where I sing this aria is after I've been arguing with my teacher, and I've been arguing with the actors and everybody, and I have to appease the diva who's supposed to sing in my opera, and it's all been very frustrating. And then Zerbinetta, who is one of the actresses, for some reason kisses me, and then everything is fine. So that's what is happening at this point in the opera. I come out after that, and I'm like, everything is great, and I'm sure that that happened so that I would agree to whatever, you know. But Komponist, who's my character, the composer, I don't think knows that. So he's kind of naive and just thinks she loves him. And so he's like, I'll do anything for you. So, yeah. So everything goes the way of the actors, basically. But yeah, so I will sing this. It's not very long. I just come out, I'm talking to my teacher, and I say, everything is well, my good friend. You know, you don't have to worry. I'm so happy, and I serve music. Music is beautiful. It's a holy art. And that's basically like all I talk about the whole time. So anyway, yes, I can do that. I won't have accompaniment, but that's fine. So let me get myself set up here. I'm going to take off these headphones. Yeah, okay. I'll just put them here. All right. Sei mir wieder gut, ich sehe jetzt alles mit anderen Augen. Die Tiefen des Daseins sind unermesslich. Mein lieber Freund, es gibt manches auf der Welt, das lässt sich nicht sagen. Die Dichter unterlegen ja recht gute Worte, recht gute. Jedoch, 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 Mut ist in mir, Mut, Freund. Die Welt ist lebendig und nicht fürchte ich den Mutigen. Was ist denn Musik? Musik ist eine heilige Kunst, zu versammeln alle Arten von Mut, wie Cherubim einen strahlenden Thron, und darum ist sie die heilige unter den Künsten. Okay. Hello.
That was wonderful.
Oh, thanks. I
That
don't know how
was
much you can hear
wonderful.
because I'm quite loud.
Oh, yeah, it
Yeah.
was good.
Okay.
Yeah, we could hear it very nicely. Oh, that's great. Well, I always like we've got a couple of minutes, and I know a couple of your students are here. I think they're both your students. Um, and I would love for them to be able to ask questions. So I think we have Iris and Elise here.
Elise, yeah,
If
that's
you
my friend, but if she has questions, that's
Oh,
fine.
your friend. Okay, good. That's good too. But if either of you have any questions, it'd be great for you to ask them now. And no questions, huh?
Yeah, I don't think so.
They can ask you at lessons anyway, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today to do this and to share your music. And it's always different to have something that's more casual than a prepared recording, which are also beautiful on profiles and that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, Tunelark appreciates your work with us, and
Yeah.
I'm so excited that were able to take the time today to have this interview. So
Well,
thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me and letting
Yep.
me sing and speak about what I believe in. So I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
that's wonderful. We
Yeah.
we appreciate it too.
Cool.
So all the best this afternoon to everyone else that's here, and we'll close it out. And
All
I'll
right.
okay.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.